Okay, hi guys, welcome back. I'm still working through the videos that match your preparation booklet. This one is on the 6-line answer. And I find this one a bit tricky because students are not often asked for and given marks for open-ended personal questions. So some students struggle to come up with details because we're not often asked those things, and nor are we scored or marked or given, feedback on that. So this is section C, writing. At the top you can see by the letter, and this used to be Roman numerals, but they're letters now, and I'll show you that in the next page. So beside that, you'll see the word writing. These are super valuable. I would suggest that you invest a lot of time in these because with booklet 1 and 2, you'll be asked this twice, and they are 50 points each. So 2 of these are worth the same amount as the essay. So if you're going to invest your time and effort in really earning points on the literacy test, this would be where you would do it. So the short writing task here is, if your school could offer a new course, what would you want it to be? Explain your answer using specific details. Now these details should be personal. This is the section that I have scored before for EQAO. And so what they ask us to look for is a bit of storytelling. Now, the people who are marking this, they receive your booklets anonymously. They score it or level it, and no one is the wiser. So if you don't know what your school should offer, I would suggest that you pick a course that your school offers and just write it there. Nobody is going to know. So I would say that that's a creative way to answer this question. So you need to make personal connections to the question. So you would have to describe something that you need in your life, something that would be helpful or beneficial to you. Now this is a little bit tricky because you're in grade 10, you've only been at the school for maybe a year and a half, or perhaps you're a previously eligible student, so maybe just make it up. Think of a course that you would like to have, or one that you've taken that was valuable, and make a personal connection. So there are 6 lines. Please write in all of them, and I would highly suggest that you use the space below to prepare. Just take some notes down. You don't have to rephrase the question, but just a course, why it would be meaningful to you, and why. The important part there is the why. Transfer it onto the 6-line answer, and again, any of us that are scoring for EQAO cannot read anything you've written below the first period, after the first period, below the line. So in this one, I would suggest transferring your details above, making sure that you do go back and make some corrections to your response, so that the people who are scoring can see that, right? They want to see that, especially in a writing selection, that you've got good writing there. So go ahead and pause the video and answer this question, and then we'll take it up afterwards. Okay. I'm going to assume that you paused it, you answered the question, you're ready to talk about it. So, the 6-line response. This is how you tell on page, this is 16, whether it is reading or writing. It's going to say beside it. In the past we used Roman numerals, but since only people who follow football know Roman numerals, we've switched to letters. Okay, so that's how you can tell that. So section 1, reading, if you see a 6-line answer, it's only 30 points. Section 3, writing, a 6-line answer is worth 50 points. So absolutely this is a great way to get some marks on the literacy test, because again, a pass is not 50%, a pass is 70%, and you do need this to graduate. So on page 70, this is the scoring criteria. Keep in mind, this is not available to you on test day. I've only included this here for you so you know what the scorers are looking for. This is the material that we receive to mark your responses. So blank, nothing is written in the space provided, or illegible, cannot be read or is erased, impossible to read, crossed out. There's almost no cases where we would mark something as illegible. We have multiple people read it to try and interpret what's on the page, so don't worry so much about that. If your writing is a little bit messy, I assure you it's not that bad. Off topic, it does not answer the question or comments on the topic. Okay, like this, I've seen things like, this test is a waste of time. That will get you a off-topic response. Code 10, the response is not developed or is developed with irrelevant ideas and information. So you say what course, and then you start writing about something else like skateboarding. That's not going to get you any more than 10 points. Or it has a negative opinion. It says, we don't need new courses, we have all the courses that we have. So again, this sort of refers to the video that I said before. It's obviously a leading question, and therefore just suggest a course. So just go with the flow, take the prompt that they give you, and then just, sort of run with it and not disagree. Code 20, the response is developed with vague ideas and information. It may contain some irrelevant ideas. So you might write about a new course and then say what you learned in a previous course. That's not connected to that main idea, so make sure that you are staying on topic. Something that I can suggest to you in your writing for the literacy test or outside of the literacy test for your classes is, does every sentence that I write, does that develop my thesis or my main idea? If it doesn't, get rid of it. It is off topic. Code 30 identifies or describes a new course and provides a clear explanation using specific and relevant details. So again, new course, here's why it might be beneficial to people, or things that you feel you are lacking in your education. That's great. And then it provides a negative opinion, so you can disagree here, but it has to have a clear explanation as to why. I would say that that's the most challenging response, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that. I would say be creative. Pick a course that you have, pretend you don't, and then answer the question. On page 18 and 19 give you sample responses for code 10, 20, and of course 30. So I'm going to go over code 20 and 30 with you, and I would suggest that you do read all of them and also the annotations that the EQAO scores put at the bottom. So code 20, so this is not 30 out of 30 points. Keep in mind this will be scored a second time for conventions. This is just the ideas. So if my school can offer a new course, I would want it to be hairstyling. Hairstyling is a course for me to show my talent and to be creative. When I do hair, this is a way for me to express my feelings and also myself. So you've got a main idea, you've got some details, but it's not being tied all together. So this is another example where you need those three things: main idea, details, and then you connect the details to the main idea. The scorers must not do any work there, okay? Code 30, so this is 30 out of 30, but keep in mind it's still a 50-point question, so this is 30 out of 50. So if my school was going to offer a new course, I would want it to be cooking and baking class. I hope it would be this because I love to cook and have a great interest in learning more recipes and cooking techniques. I also think this class would be helpful because cooking helps me with math skills such as measurement and unit convention, comprehension skills, and understanding. So is this a great response? I would say this is a solid response. It's got lots of details there, but I'm still concerned that the connection is not being made there. It would be beneficial because it helps with math. I would like to see that connected to the self. It's a great response, lots of details there. Page 20, you can see a second scoring guide. Now, you will see this in booklet 1 and booklet 2. These will be different questions, but again, 50 points for a total of 100. That's as valuable as the essay or the news report. So please, again, note that these are ones that you should go back and edit. So conventions, you have insufficient, inadequate, code 10 or 20. And really that's what we're looking at between 10 and 20 because we don't often see when we're scoring this insufficient or inadequate. So insufficient means you have like 2 words. I believe the rule is less than 15 words. And then inadequate. There are so many errors in syntax, grammar, usage, spelling, and punctuation that we don't know as scorers what it is that you're writing. Now, between a 10 and a 20, it's interesting. What they tell you as a scorer is that with a code 10, you have to go back and reread some parts. Code 20, you could read it through all the way. You would notice errors, but it doesn't stop you and cause you to go back and reread it. So the expectations here are, I think they're actually quite achievable. Keep in mind that this test is based on end of grade 9 literacy, and that's why it runs sort of midpoint through semester 2 in grade 10. It is looking at those students hopefully who have all gone through the grade 9 year, and it's looking at what they expect you to be able to do then. So again, the expectations for the syntax and spelling and grammar and punctuation I think are quite achievable. So inadequate, Serious errors prevent communication. So this one is very difficult to read and understand. Code 10, you've got a number of spelling mistakes. This is all one sentence. So the student has not divided this by ideas. You know, there's no commas here. So that's deeply problematic, but it still gets 10 out of 20 points. And then code 20. So keep in mind, most of these have lots of details. The student has used a transition word firstly with a comma. And look at that, they've written below the line, but they've stopped by the first period. So they're not going to read anything thereafter. Okay, so this happens in booklet 1 and booklet 2. Go ahead and read these responses. And I'll go through and find booklet 2 for you for the open point response. So we're almost finished booklet 1. You still have the essay to do and the news report for the long answer questions. So section J on page 85 is the second open response question. So the multiple choice and the 6-line opinion question happen in booklet 1 and booklet 2. So in booklet 2, I'm not going to go over this again because I'm doing it here. So this is on page 85 if you wanted to turn to that, and I would suggest that you answer this one again. If you want more sample questions, I've included them in here, and you can always go to the website eqao.com, and under the link assessments, it'll link in many sample tests. Keep in mind, they're not going to, and they've stopped publishing all of the tests. They've held some parts of previous tests back because I believe they're recycling and reusing them. Though as an educator, we're not allowed to look at the test, so I would have no idea. The way that you could go and get some information on EQAO is definitely by going to the website or even the hashtag. So after you write the literacy test, there will be OSSLT 2019 hashtag, 2018 hashtag, and students create all kinds of hilarious memes. So that'll let you know sort of what's on the test. And I would suggest that you take a look at those because in my opinion, those show pretty great inferencing skills, okay? So are you writing the same test? Yes. Does it vary for some students? A little bit. Are there test passages? Yes. So let's look at 85. Hopefully we all have the same one. This question is, identify one action you take in your daily life to be healthy. This again assumes that you're taking an action in your daily life to be healthy. So this is an example of these leading questions, and I would suggest that you just go along with it. If you don't do anything healthy, which I do not believe, make it up. Put things in there that you have been suggested to do to be healthy and pretend that you're doing them. The people who are scoring the EQAO do not know this. They do not know who you are, so that is unimportant. Be creative. Sometimes these are difficult questions to answer because we're never really asked this by teachers, and we're certainly not scored on it. So if you don't know, try and make it up. An example of that might be that I've seen, what's the best advice you've given someone and why? Sometimes that's hard to come up with on the spot. So take some advice that you've been given and pretend that you've given it. Tell a story and explain how it changed somebody's life. Put it all together with a sentence at the end. Beautiful. So you've got a section for rough notes. I would suggest that you fill that in with things that you know to be healthy that happen on a daily basis. And then you can take a look at the scoring guide here. Pause the video now, perhaps, and answer this question. Then we can talk about all the levels and how they're scored. Okay, I'm going to assume that you've answered the question and pause the video. Page 86 is the scoring guide, and again, this is the same as the last one, so I'm not going to go through that. I would definitely read this to see what their expectations are. There's a code 10 and a 20 and a 30. We read 20 and 30 last time, so we're going to go over 10 this time. One thing I do to try and maintain a healthy lifestyle would be to go out with my dog for half an hour to a full hour walk. During this walk, we would go about the neighborhood, go to the parks, and sometimes play fetch on a field. The response identifies and describes an action. Go out for half an hour to an hour with my dog, but does not provide an explanation for how the action contributes to the student's health. So this is what I was explaining before, that you need a main idea, a detail, and that I as a scorer don't infer. I understand what this student is writing, obviously, that walking is good for your health. But because this is a standardized test, we can't make assumptions for students. It has to be on the page. It is actually the only way that makes standardized testing fair, if you think it's fair. So make sure that you are taking those details, and then if you have to, rephrase the question. Say something like, walking for 30 minutes reduces my stress, and that contributes to whatever, sleeping better, or just physical health and activity, getting your heart rate up, all of those good things that you've been told. So make sure that you are connecting that back, bringing it all together so that your score does not have to do that. My suggestion then is to read 20 and 30 and go back and score your response. You can always keep track as to how you're doing on the literacy test. And absolutely for this, never leave anything blank. Don't leave your multiple choice questions blank, and definitely don't leave the 6-line writing response or open response blank, because it's so valuable. If you need more, go to eqao.com assessments and check out what's there. There are lots of extra samples for you. Now, keep in mind this one also is scored for conventions, but I've not included that in this booklet because really it's just, does it distract or does it not distract? So that's easy enough. And then definitely write more if you need. Go back and edit these responses.